Double battles were introduced in Gen 3 of Pokemon. In turn, Ruby and Sapphire added many doubles-focused features, but move fusion was one mechanic that wound up being cut. So good morning fellas, I'm Matt, and today we're gonna see what that could have been like. We'll take a bunch of existing moves and talk about what might happen if you smash them together, making up a bunch of new moves along the way. Alright, let's get started.
What's up? I'm Elias, and only one combination was programmed into the game before the mechanic was thrown out. If one of your Pokemon used Gust and the other one used Ember, the two moves would have fused together to become Heat Wave. We'll talk about why we think move fusion got cut a little later. This mechanic is similar to the pledge moves, which were introduced in Gen 5. When you use two of those attacks in the same turn, you get a unique effect.
The difference is that with the pledge moves, the two attacks aren't creating a third one. Water Pledge plus Grass Pledge gives you a supercharged Grass Pledge, rather than something completely different. Those two moves also interact with Fire Pledge, but this other fusion mechanic has way more potential. You could probably combine Tackle with a million different moves, resulting in all sorts of combined attacks. We're not gonna combine Tackle with a million different moves, but we do have a bunch to share today.
Let's kick things off with Rain Dance. Whenever the rain is active, Thunder will bypass accuracy checks. So these two moves already interact with each other, but let's take it to the next level. By using Rain Dance and Thunder on the same turn, they could combine to form Thunderstorm. This move would skip accuracy checks the same way Thunder does, and we're also going to give it a secondary effect.
We'll make Thunderstorm strike the target with lightning for 3 turns in a row, which would deal chip damage at the end of each round. Each time the target is struck by lightning, they'll also have a chance to be paralyzed. Thunderstorm would have quite a high base power, but in exchange, you need to use both your Pokemon's turns to pull it off. If you go for a Thunderstorm, you couldn't use another attack on the same turn, and that's also going to be true for all the other fusions today. That's why we made it strong and added a secondary effect. Balancing a mechanic like this would be pretty finicky, but there are a handful of ways to go about it. You could make them a once per battle thing, for example, which is the same way the generational gimmicks work.
You know what? Let's do another combo with Thunder. Solid as a Soul Rock is an infamous anime episode thanks to this scene towards the end. After struggling against Tate and Eliza for most of the episode, Ash's Pikachu used Thunder on itself and Swellow. Instead of losing the battle on the I don't want to curse, dude.
You want me to cut that?
Instead of losing the battle on the spot, this ridiculous maneuver powers both Pokemon up, which eventually gives Ash the win.
As absurd as this technique was, we're gonna theory craft a Thunder Armor move for the games anyway. If you use Thunder and Fly on the same turn, you'd fire off a supercharged Electro-type attack and boost both Pokemon's defense stats by 1 stage. We thought about making it 2 stages, but that felt a little excessive. Maybe this whole video's excessive actually, oh well.
Let's do another move inspired by the same episode, shall we? A couple of times during the battle, Tate and Eliza attempted to combine their Pokemon's attacks. The results were, well, let's just say they were mixed. Our next move is called Polar Beam. If you use Ice Beam and Solar Beam on the same turn, they'll cancel each other out and do nothing. Yup. Tate and Eliza did use the combo successfully later on, but that's not as fun. I think the game should have more splash clones.
New move, Blink.
I blanked. Now what do I do?
You did no damage. You now lose your turn.
Oh man.
Counter and Mirror Coat aren't the most common moves out there, but they have the potential to deal devastating damage. So let's take that to the next level today. If your two Pokemon use Counter and Mirror Coat on the same turn, they'd combine to become Hyper Mirror Shield. Instead of doubling the damage you take and dealing it back to your opponent, Hyper Mirror Shield would block all damage from attacking moves entirely.
If your opponents try to hit you while the shield is up, the attacks will be reflected back towards them. Said attacks would deal double the damage in that case, which is the same thing Counter and Mirror Coat do. Unlike those moves though, Hyper Mirror Shield would also prevent you from taking direct damage, and it would work on both physical and special moves. Is Pokemon just slap fighting but with animals?
I think Pokemon battling is a little bit more sophisticated than slap fighting.
Are you sure?
No. If neither of your Pokemon attack you, that's fine as well. In that case, Hyper Mirror Shield will be a strong spread move instead. So even if you whiff on the damage reflection, you'd still do something productive with your turn. Fun fact, by the way, this would be the only fighting type spread attack in the game. All the real fighting attacks only hit 1 target.
Pivoting moves are some of the best in competitive play. On any given turn, you normally have to decide whether you want your Pokemon to attack or switch, but by using U-turn, flip turn, or volt switch, you can do both at the same time. These moves have a ton of benefits, like providing safer switch-ins for other Pokemon on your team, scouting your opponent's switches, and easily activating Palafin's ability 0 to Hero. So let's fuse them together to... I cannot do the thing that involves comprehending the words on the screen.
You illiterate little guy.
So let's fuse them together today, shall we? I did it.
Yippee. If you use any pairing of U-turn, flip turn, and volt switch on the same turn, they combine to become quick cycle. Does quick cycle sound too much like laundry? Oh well. Its typing would depend on which two moves you used. As an example, if you used volt switch and flip turn, it would deal electric and water type damage at the same time. It would basically be another spin on flying press's concept. By using this move, you'll also have the option to switch out both of your Pokemon.
There are quite a few moves that have to do with the moon, but for today, let's fuse the two fairy type ones. Moon Blast and Moonlight could combine to create Lunar Burst. It would be a strong attacking move, but it would also have a healing effect. This move would restore health for all of your Pokemon, including the ones that aren't on the field. They'd all regain a third of their max HP. You know, the more fusions we came up with, the more we realized that, yeah, this should definitely be a once per battle thing. Honestly, it's probably for the best that Game Freak gave up on the move fusions, and we'll talk about why in a second.
Surf and Sludge Wave have pretty similar concepts. Both moves involve swamping the field with a big wave, but Sludge Wave is made of something that's not safe to drink, citation needed. So if you used both of these moves on the same turn, they could fuse to form Toxic Tsunami. It'd have some absurd base power, and it also poison both of your opponents. Hello Elias, when was the last time you drank some good poison?
Hopefully, like, never.
Good answer.
Let's give the birds of the world some more love, shall we? As of now, the moves Fly and Gravity don't play nicely with each other. If a Pokemon is using Fly when Intense Gravity is activated, the attack will immediately be cancelled and do no damage. But what if you could use the Gravity to your advantage instead?
Good morning, fellas. So Elias and I did genuinely try to go for a world record, longest time keeping 5 balloons in the air, before we realized it was impossible. When we went to the park to try this record, we sat down and Elias told me he doesn't even know how to tie a balloon.
Hey, I didn't know how to tie a balloon, and I still tied the balloon before you did. So who really wins here?
Okay, you started blowing up the balloon first. By clicking Fly and Gravity on the same turn, you'd be able to use Terminal Dive. It'd be a single turn flying type attack, and it would paralyze the target. The move's name is a reference to Terminal Velocity, which is the maximum speed a falling object can achieve. Sort of. There are a few ways to exceed this velocity, including throwing the object directly downwards or increasing the force of gravity. By using Fly and Gravity in quick succession, you'd be able to fall faster and deal more damage. Alright, next video is, we're actually just gonna fully pivot to slap fighting content.
So true. Preach, brother. Not a lot of information is known about the fusion mechanics, so how it would have been balanced is anyone's guess. The moves we've made up today are pretty powerful in one way or another, because otherwise they just wouldn't be worth choosing. If a Dark Pulse Flamethrower fusion was 110 base power, for example, you'd be better off just using the two moves separately, because that would result in more damage. So we think it's warranted to make fused moves way stronger, or give them powerful secondary effects.
That's also the philosophy behind the Pledge moves. When you use them individually, they have an acceptable base power and no secondary effects, but when you fuse them together, the combined move is nearly twice as strong, and you get a unique bonus. You need to use both Pokemon's turns to get those benefits though, which helps prevent them from being overwhelming.
If you go for a combined move, you can't do anything else for the turn. No other attacks, no switching, no protection, no frisbeeing your opponent's switch across the room, no nothing. These moves also aren't commonly distributed, which makes them harder to build a team around. Why use Fire Pledge Infernape and Water Plague? Why use Fire Pledge Infernape and Water Pledge Blastoise when you can simply do Incineroar nonsense?
I came up with another one. Water Plague is a combination of Surf and, I don't know, Attack Order or something.
Muddy Water.
Muddy Water and Attack Order?
Muddy Water and Surf. I don't know, super tidal wave. Combo 852.
I was doing Water Plague. Balancing could be one of the main reasons we didn't get move fusion in Ruby and Sapphire. To properly balance a move, you have to consider its base power, accuracy, power points, additional effects, and distribution. Doing that with a bunch of regular moves is already difficult, but figuring out how to implement move fusion would be an even bigger uphill battle. If you make them too weak, they wouldn't be worth using at all. If you make them too strong, that throws the entire game out of whack. Balancing the Pledge moves is fairly manageable, but a more robust move fusion feature would be a million times more difficult.
That's not the only issue move fusion would have faced either. There are hundreds of thousands of possible move pairings, so it would be straight up impossible for all of them to create unique fusions. It would take an eternity to make that many animations. So with that in mind, how would you teach the player which moves can combine with each other? In-game spreadsheets? Thousands of lines of NPC dialogue? Pure trial and error? No thanks.
What do you mean? You're not a big fan of spreadsheets? in your video games.
No, I don't like spreadsheets I don't like Excel simulator.
You would have to come up with a limited selection of fusions, then figure out a way to show which pairings are valid. There are ways you could go about doing that, but it'd probably end up being pretty clunky. Maybe you could have a section in the Pokedex for moves, and each entry would tell you what fusions you can make. If you look up Thunderbolt in the dex, maybe it says you can fuse it with Rest, Brine, Twister, and Zekrom Kick. Beep.
But if you had to check a move dex to figure out which pairings work, fusions would still be awkward to learn. Every time you learn a move, you'd have to check and see if you have anything it can fuse with, which makes the process of learning the mechanics slow and tedious. On the flip side, generational gimmicks change the game pretty heavily, but it's easy to get the ball rolling once you know the basics.
Welcome to YouTube.com. They have started implementing AI comment responses. We have gotten comments asking how tall Elias and I are. The AI is saying that I'm 5'9" and Elias's height is undetermined.
I am an asymptote on the axis of height.
Elias is 10'7".
This is so true.
In turn, that makes it easy for the player to start messing around with them. In Scarlet and Violet, every Pokemon is capable of terastallizing at a moment's notice. Nearly every Pokemon can do the same with Dynamax and Sword and Shield, with the exception of the box legendaries and Eternatus. Not every Pokemon can Mega Evolve, and you need a specific item to use Z moves, but those mechanics are also easy to figure out.
If you pick up a Venusaurite from Professor Sycamore, you probably aren't going to give it to Sudowoodo and expect it to do something. Granted, it's not going to work on anything for a while, since you have to fully evolve your Bulbasaur first, but that gives you something to look forward to later in the game. It's easy to tell which Megastones belong to which Pokemon since their names are derived from their respective species. Z crystals are pretty straightforward too. It's pretty obvious which moves will be powered up by a Firium Z. That's why I gave one to my Wailord that only knows Bulldoze.
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer. You are terrible at raising Pokemon.
This came over to me from a trade with you.
Slander on the internet.
Like you aren't doing the same?
A mechanic like move fusion would be limited by design, and it would be hard to show the player what those limits are in an engaging way. It also just wouldn't work well with the design of many games. Even though Gen 3 introduced double battles, there are very few mandatory ones, so even if you did find a way to teach them effectively, you would have very few chances to do it, because the main story of Ruby and Sapphire still heavily focused on single battles.
Move fusion just wouldn't have been a good use of development time. You're never going to finish combining all the moves, and you won't come across most of the ones that are in the game during your adventure. With those details in mind, it makes sense that move fusion got scrapped. We did wind up getting a diet version of the mechanic in Gen 5, but anything more complex would have been a mess. This video is entirely hypothetical, and it'll probably stay that way for the foreseeable future.
So, not long ago, Elias took me to see a movie in Chinese called The Shadow's Edge. I told my parents about that and they were like, wait, are you gonna be able to understand it? There were captions.
No, Matt has actually managed to learn fluent Chinese.
I wish.
Right before, sponsored by Duolingo, right before the movie started, Matt did 2 Duolingo lessons and he mastered the language.
This video is not sponsored. Elias is making up lies and gassing me up on the internet. I wouldn't have gone if there weren't captions, to be honest. Unless you wanted to whisper in my ear what's happening every 5 minutes.
No, I wouldn't have gone if there weren't captions.
We did get Mega Malamar today, so check that out.
Interesting. It looks like Brainibus. I just made Brainibus up. I don't know what Brainibus is. We'll
make Thunderstorm strike the... Mega Malamar is hypnotizing me into screwing up my lines. Maybe that's what's been happening this whole time. You know what? Here's another quick look into what it's like being a YouTuber. Recently, they've been adding a lot of, complete and utter nonsense to YouTube Studio, including a million ways to brainstorm the worst video ideas we've ever seen. As of a little while ago, you can start a brainstorm from any comments on your videos. According to YouTube, I should take Evil MEPlaysGames comments and turn them into videos like the tactical depth of Magikarp's tackle, breaking down the loaded dice conspiracy, and the true cost of training attack-savvy Zekrom. Yeah, we're not making those.
Comment below if you want to see a 25-minute video about how to train the true cost of training attack-savvy Zekrom.
You are so predictable. Oh my god.
Of course I'm predictable. That's how humor works.